The doom of the war. The Galactic Council Hall buzzed with unease. The representatives of various alien species gathered, their faces grim. Holographic projections of battles played in the center of the vast circular chamber. They showed defeat after defeat, fleet after fleet being obliterated by the relentless Kralliks. The Kralliks, a race of biomechanical invaders, had swept across galaxies, leaving destruction in their wake. Their ships were larger, their weapons more advanced, and their soldiers nearly indestructible. The war had dragged on for years, and now, it seemed, the end was near. The Andurian ambassador, a tall, silver-skinned figure, raised his voice. "We must accept the truth. The Kralliks are unstoppable. Continuing this war will only lead to our extinction." Murmurs of agreement echoed across the hall. The Turvan representative, a creature with 6 glowing eyes, added, "Our resources are depleted. Our people are tired. We must negotiate surrender while we still can." A hush fell over the room as these words sunk in. For the first time in centuries, the council faced the possibility of defeat. That was when the human ambassador stood. His figure was unassuming compared to the towering and exotic aliens around him. His voice, however, carried a weight that silenced the room. "If you surrender, you're not saving your people. You're dooming them." The Andurian ambassador turned to him, skepticism clear in his expression. "And what do you propose, human? Our fleets are shattered. Our armies are in retreat. What could you possibly do?" The human smiled faintly. Humans have a saying. "It's not over until it's over. You've fought this war their way on their terms, but now it's time to fight it our way." The council erupted into whispers and protests. The Turvan representative scoffed. "Your kind is young, reckless. You think stubbornness is a strategy." The human's gaze sharpened. "It's not stubbornness. It's resilience, and it's creativity. The Kralliks are strong, yes, but they're predictable. They rely on brute force, overwhelming numbers. They don't understand adaptability." Before anyone could interrupt, the human ambassador stepped closer to the hologram. With a flick of his hand, he pulled up a map of the latest Kralliks territory. He pointed to their supply lines, energy sources, and key bases. "They're not invincible. They have weaknesses. We've studied them, found cracks in their armor. What you need isn't more ships or soldiers. What you need is a new way of thinking." The Andurian ambassador frowned. "And what would this new way entail?" The human leaned forward, his voice lowering but gaining intensity. "We stop fighting their war. We hit them where it hurts. Sabotage their supply lines. Disrupt their communications. Turn their strength into their weakness." For a moment, the room was silent. The idea was radical, but there was something in the human's tone, something that made the other ambassadors pause. The Turvan representative finally spoke, his voice skeptical but curious. "And who would lead such an operation? Surely, not your kind. You lack the resources." The human ambassador smirked. "We might lack resources, but we make up for it with determination. And as it happens, we have someone who can lead this effort." The chamber's lights dimmed slightly as a new figure entered. The human commander, clad in a plain but functional uniform, walked with purpose into the center of the room. Her presence demanded attention. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, and she wasted no time. "I'm Commander Elena Carter," she said, her voice steady and firm. "I studied the Kralliks for years. I know how they think, how they operate. And I know how to beat them." The Andurian ambassador raised an eyebrow. "You speak with confidence, but confidence alone doesn't win wars." Elena met his gaze without flinching. "You're right, but strategy does. And that's what I'm offering. A chance to turn this war around. Give me one fleet, a small task force. Let me show you what humans can do." The council erupted into debate. Some argued it was a foolish gamble, a waste of what little they had left. Others, however, saw a glimmer of hope in the human's plan. Finally, the Turvan representative leaned forward. "If you fail, it could doom us all. But if you succeed, Elena interrupted, her voice unwavering, we won't fail. The Andurian ambassador hesitated before nodding slowly. Very well. You'll have your fleet, Commander. But understand this, if this doesn't work, humanity will bear the blame. Elena's lips curved into a faint smile. Blame us if you want. Just remember who brought you victory. As she turned to leave, the council watched her with a mix of doubt and cautious optimism. The war might have been doomed, but for the first time in years, there was a spark of hope. The human ambassador looked around the room one last time and said, "You've tried everything else. Now it's time to let humanity take control." With those words, the meeting ended, but the true battle was just beginning. Humanity's unconventional strategy. The command deck of the Resolute, the flagship assigned to the humans' bold mission, hummed with tension. Alien officers from various allied species murmured among themselves, their skepticism about the human-led operation clear. Commander Elena Carter stood at the center, her eyes fixed on a massive tactical display. A turbaned tactician with glowing blue veins folded his arms. Commander, the Krellick's fleet is impenetrable. Their supply routes are heavily guarded, and their ships outclass anything we have. Your strategy seems more like suicide than warfare. Elena didn't flinch. Instead, she zoomed in on a key Krellick supply route, a convoy route hidden deep within a nebula. She tapped the display. This convoy carries the fuel that powers their war machines. Without it, their fleets are crippled. They're overconfident, relying on brute force. That's their mistake. The Andurian second-in-command leaned closer, his silver skin shimmering under the dim lights. And your plan is to attack, here, in the middle of an ion storm. That's madness. Elena turned to him, her expression calm but firm. It's not madness. It's the only way. The storm creates interference, making it difficult for their long-range sensors to detect us. We slip in, sabotage their fuel depots, and disappear before they even realize we were there. The turbaned tactician snorted. And what happens when they do realize? They'll hunt us down like prey. Elena smiled faintly. They can't hunt what they can't catch. Humans are experts in asymmetrical warfare. We don't fight head-on. We hit where it hurts and fade away. Despite their doubts, the alien officers couldn't deny the logic. It was unconventional, risky, and entirely human. The mission begins. The Resolute and its small task force slipped into the nebula under the cover of the ion storm. The swirling clouds of charged particles made navigation treacherous. Sparks flickered across the ship's hull, and alarms blared intermittently as systems strained to cope. Elena stood on the bridge, her voice steady as she gave orders. Keep the shield stable. Adjust course by 2 degrees starboard. We stay in the storm's heart to remain invisible. A young human pilot turned from his station. Commander, we're approaching the convoy's projected route. No signs of them yet. Good. Maintain stealth protocols. Everyone, stay sharp. Minutes felt like hours as the ships glided through the storm. Then a faint blip appeared on the radar. Elena's heart quickened. There they are. On the tactical display, the convoy materialized. Massive Krellick's fuel carriers escorted by heavily armed frigates. They moved in a tight formation, their energy signatures pulsing like a heartbeat. Elena's plan unfolded with surgical precision. A team of human and Andurian operatives launched in stealth pods, threading through the chaos of the storm. Each pod carried enough explosives to turn the fuel carriers into fireballs. Inside one of the pods, Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, a seasoned human soldier, checked his gear. His Andurian partner, Rilvar, glanced at him with mild curiosity. Your kind seems to thrive in situations like this. Aren't you afraid of failure? Hayes smirked. Failure's not an option. Besides, this isn't the first time humanity's faced impossible odds. Rilvar tilted his head. You're an odd species. Maybe, but that's why we win. The attack. The operatives breached the fuel carriers, moving with quiet efficiency. Krellick's drones patrolled the corridors, their insectoid frames clicking ominously. Hayes led the team, signaling for silence as they planted charges along the main fuel lines. A sudden noise made everyone freeze. The whirring of Krellick's drones grew louder. They'd been spotted. "Move, move." Hayes barked as the team raced for the exit. Blaster fire erupted, the sound echoing through the tight corridors. The operatives fought back, their training and instincts kicking in. On the Resolute, Alina watched the chaos on the monitors. Her jaw tightened. Get them out of there. Now. The operatives barely made it back to their pods as the charges detonated. A chain reaction tore through the fuel carriers, engulfing them in fiery explosions. The Krellick's frigates scrambled to respond, but the storm hampered their movements. The task force didn't wait to celebrate. They vanished into the storm, leaving destruction and confusion in their wake. Aftermath. Back on the command deck, the mood was electric. The crew watched as the tactical display showed the Krellick's convoy in ruins. Supplies that should have fueled their war efforts for months were gone. The Turvan tactician approached Alina, his earlier skepticism replaced with grudging respect. "You've done what we thought impossible. The Krellicks will feel this loss." Alina nodded, her expression resolute. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them they're not untouchable. Now we keep the pressure on." The Andurian second-in-command folded his arms, his tone curious. "Your tactics are effective, but dangerous. What drives your kind to take such risks?" Alina met his gaze. "Survival. Humanity doesn't back down when we're cornered. We adapt, we fight, and we win." As the ship moved to its next destination, the crew realized one thing. The humans weren't just part of the Alliance. They were its edge. The Krellick's wouldn't know what hit them. The first victory. The Krellick's high command was in chaos. Reports of the destroyed fuel convoy buzzed through their hive mind network like static interference. No species had ever managed such a precise strike, let alone under the cover of an ion storm. In the shadowy depths of a Krellick's warship, a command drone, larger and more fearsome than its subordinates, hissed a chilling statement. "The humans are unpredictable." The relentless pursuit. On board the Resolute, Commander Alina Carter reviewed the aftermath of their victory. The holographic map displayed Krellick's controlled regions. One supply route was now in ruins, but dozens remained. "This is just a scratch," said Rilvar, the Andurian second-in-command. His silver features gleamed under the tactical room's lights. "The Krellick's won't make the same mistake twice. They'll fortify the rest of their routes." Alina leaned over the table, her sharp eyes scanning the map. "That's exactly what we want them to do." Confused murmurs spread among the alien officers. A chloric strategist, his insect-like legs clicking nervously, asked, "You want them to fortify? That'll make the next strike impossible." Alina straightened, her voice calm but firm. "The Krellick's think in absolutes. They'll pour resources into protecting their supplies, spreading themselves thin across their front lines. That's when we hit them where it hurts most, on the battlefield." The plan. The next target wasn't a supply line or a base. It was the Krellick's assault fleet stationed near the Auspice Rift. The Rift, a volatile region of space riddled with gravitational anomalies, had long been avoided by both sides. However, the humans saw it as an opportunity. Alina gathered her officers in the briefing room. The plan was simple yet audacious. They would lure the Krellick's fleet into the Rift, where the unstable environment would work against the invaders. "How do we bait them?" Rilvar asked, his voice skeptical. Alina's lips curved into a faint smile. "With something they can't resist, a false distress signal from an abandoned human colony." The room fell silent. Even the alien officers, who had grown accustomed to the humans' daring ideas, exchanged uneasy glances. "They'll take the bait," Alina continued. "The Krellick's don't just conquer, they annihilate. They can't resist the chance to wipe us out. And when they come, we'll be ready. The trap is set. The false distress signal went out, a desperate cry for help supposedly from a human colony in the Auspice Rift. The signal's raw emotion, a woman's voice begging for salvation, was deliberately designed to provoke the Kralix's cold cruelty. It didn't take long. Within hours, Kralix warships emerged from hyperspace, their spiked silhouettes cutting through the void. The human fleet, hidden behind the gravitational anomalies, watched in silence. On the bridge of the Resolute, Alina gave the order. Activate the mines. Dozens of stealth mines, scattered throughout the rift, detonated in sequence. Explosions rippled through the Kralix formation, ripping apart their forward ships. The gravitational anomalies amplified the chaos, pulling wreckage into swirling vortexes. But the Kralix weren't easily defeated. Their remaining ships regrouped, returning fire with devastating plasma cannons. The human task force weaved through the rift, using the environment to their advantage. A fight for survival. The battle was brutal. Every move the humans made was countered by the Kralix's superior firepower, but humanity's adaptability shone through. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes led a squadron of fighter pilots in a daring maneuver, drawing Kralix ships into a narrow corridor where their massive size worked against them. The pilots' voices crackled over the comms. "Hayes, we're taking heavy fire. Hold steady. They're falling right into the trap." A moment later, a gravitational surge collapsed the corridor, crushing the Kralix vessels in its grip. On the Resolute, Alina coordinated the fleet's movements with precision. "Focus fire on their command ship. If we take it out, the rest will fall apart." The Allied fleet concentrated their efforts. A final barrage of missiles and energy beams struck the Kralix command ship, shattering it in a fiery explosion. The remaining Kralix ships, disoriented and leaderless, retreated into the rift, where gravitational anomalies devoured them. Aftermath. The silence after the battle was deafening. The human task force had done the impossible, defeating a Kralix fleet in open combat. The cost, however, was heavy. Damaged ships limped back to the rally point, and casualty reports began pouring in. Alina stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the starfield ahead. Rilvar approached, his tone softer than usual. "You've proven your point, Commander. The Kralix aren't invincible." Alina nodded but didn't smile. This was a victory, but it's only the beginning. They'll come back stronger. We need to stay ahead. The turban tactician joined them, his glowing eyes thoughtful. "Your methods are unconventional, dangerous, but effective. Perhaps there's more to humanity than we thought." Alina finally turned to face them. "We're not stronger, faster, or more advanced than the Kralix, but we're relentless, and as long as we keep fighting, we'll find a way to win." The crew of the Resolute watched their commander with a newfound respect. For the first time, the Alliance had hope, not just because of their numbers or technology, but because of the humans who refused to give up. And somewhere, deep in Kralix territory, their high command prepared for retaliation, whispering one word in their mechanical language: humans. The Kralix counterattack. The Kralix were not known for subtlety. Their response to the Auspice Rift disaster came swiftly and without warning. While the Alliance forces celebrated their victory, the invaders prepared a counterstrike of overwhelming ferocity. In the vast void near the human colony on Darien 7, a quiet mining planet on the fringes of Allied space, a massive Kralix fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their ships, glinting like razor-edged nightmares, descended upon the unsuspecting world. The first signs. On Darien 7, life was simple. Farmers worked their fields, miners delved into the rich veins of iridium, and children played under the planet's twin suns. They believed the war was far away. That illusion shattered when the sky turned dark. The first Kralix vessel pierced the atmosphere, its engines screaming like a banshee. Panic spread as more ships followed, blotting out the suns with their massive forms. The local militia scrambled, their outdated weapons pitiful against the invaders. Across the settlement, alarms blared, and terrified colonists rushed to evacuation bunkers. Over the comms, the militia captain's desperate voice crackled. To any Allied ships in range, "This is Darien 7. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack." The Resolute responds. Aboard the Resolute, Commander Elena Carter stood in the war room, her hands gripping the edge of the tactical table. The distress signal from Darien 7 played on a loop, each word tightening the knot in her chest. Rilvar, her Andurian second-in-command, studied the holographic map with concern. The Krelliks are retaliating. They're targeting civilian colonies now. Elena's jaw clenched. They're trying to break us. Fear and chaos. That's their strategy now. The turban tactician chimed in, his glowing eyes scanning the data. Our fleet isn't in position to intercept. By the time we get there, we'll be too late, Elena finished grimly. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. But we can't let them take Darien 7. If we abandon our colonies, we lose the trust of the Alliance and the war. She turned to her crew. Prepare the jump. We're taking the fight to them. The battle for Darien 7. The Resolute and its small fleet dropped out of hyperspace to a scene of devastation. Krelliks drones swarmed the colony, their spiked forms tearing through defenses. Fires raged across the surface, and the once blue skies were choked with smoke. Elena wasted no time. Deploy fighters. Draw their attention away from the colony. Ground teams, prepare for combat drops. We're taking back that planet. The human fleet surged forward, engaging the Krellik ships with precision strikes. Fighter squadrons darted through the chaos, outmaneuvering the bulkier Krellik's craft. On the ground, dropships landed amidst the burning settlements, releasing squads of human soldiers and their alien allies. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes led one of the ground teams. As they moved through the ruined streets, he barked orders to his squad. Stay sharp. The drones are everywhere. A child's cry echoed from a nearby building. Hayes motioned for his team to follow, their weapons raised. Inside, they found a group of colonists huddled together, fear etched on their faces. "We're here to help," Hayes said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Stay close to us." A desperate stand. The Krelliks were relentless. For every drone destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The Allied forces fought with everything they had, but the sheer numbers threatened to overwhelm them. On the Resolute, Elena watched the battle unfold on the monitors. The colony's evacuation was underway, but time was running out. Rilvar approached her, his expression grim. "We're losing ground. The Krelliks are pushing us back." Elena's mind raced. Then she spotted something on the tactical display, a geothermal power plant near the colony's edge. An idea began to form. "Rilvar," she said, "we need to draw the Krelliks to the power plant." The Andurian frowned. "The plant. If it's destroyed, the colony will survive. The Krelliks won't." Elena interrupted. "We overload the plant, create a shockwave big enough to wipe them out." Rilvar hesitated, then nodded. "I hope you're right, Commander." The turning point. Elena transmitted orders to the ground teams. Hayes and his squad fought their way to the power plant, escorting the last of the colonists to safety. Inside the plant, engineers worked frantically to rig the system for a controlled overload. As the Krelliks swarmed toward their position, Hayes radioed in. "Commander, the plant is ready, but we're outnumbered here. We won't make it out in time." Elena's heart sank. "Hold the line as long as you can. We'll cover you from the air." The Resolute unleashed a barrage of firepower, buying the ground team precious seconds. Hayes and his squad stood their ground, fighting with everything they had. Finally, the overload sequence activated. A brilliant light erupted from the plant, followed by a deafening shockwave that consumed the Krelliks' forces. The Allied troops barely escaped the blast radius, retreating to the dropships as the battlefield fell silent. Aftermath. Darien 7 was scared but not broken. The colony's survivors emerged from the bunkers, their faces filled with gratitude and hope. On the Resolute, Alina addressed her crew. "We've shown the Krelliks that we won't back down, no matter how hard they hit us. But this is just the beginning. They'll come for us again." Rilvar stepped forward. "And when they do, Commander, they'll find us ready." The crew cheered, their spirits lifted despite the heavy toll. Humanity's resilience had inspired not just their own kind, but the entire alliance. In the distance, the Krelliks regrouped, their hive mind buzzing with fury. They had underestimated the humans once again, a mistake they wouldn't soon forget. The turning point. The Krelliks' hive mind brooded in silence, their collective intelligence dissecting the losses at Darien 7. For centuries, they had been the predators, methodically consuming weaker species. But these humans, reckless, relentless, and impossibly resourceful, were unlike any opponent they had encountered. Far from the front lines, deep within a hidden chamber on the Resolute, Commander Alina Carter stood over a holodeble, flanked by her most trusted officers and strategists. The Alliance forces had won a reprieve, but Alina knew that another victory like Darien 7 would break them. They needed a bold move to end this war on their terms. "We've been reactive," Alina began, her tone sharp. "We fight when they attack, retreat when overwhelmed. That ends now. It's time we take the fight to them." The Krelliks' weakness. A turban scientist, his glowing eyes flickering with excitement, stepped forward and activated the holodeble. "Commander, we've uncovered a critical vulnerability in the Krelliks' network." The display shifted to show a massive structure deep in Krelliks' territory, the Nexus Core. This fortress housed the central intelligence that coordinated the Krelliks' hive mind. The Andurian second-in-command, Rilvar, frowned. "You're suggesting we attack the Nexus Core? It's suicide. That system is crawling with Krellik ships." The scientist nodded. "True, but our analysis suggests a disruption to the core could sever their hive mind temporarily. Without it, their coordination falters. They'll be vulnerable." Alina studied the display, her mind racing. How long would the disruption last? Hours. At most, the scientist admitted. But it would give us an opening, a chance to hit them where it hurts. Rilvar folded his arms. "And how do you propose we reach the core? It's surrounded by defenses we can't breach." Alina's lips curved into a faint smile. "We don't breach them. We bypass them." The plan. Alina laid out her audacious strategy. The Alliance fleet would stage a diversionary assault on the Krelliks' front lines, drawing their forces away from the core. Meanwhile, a small strike team would infiltrate the core using a prototype stealth ship equipped with advanced cloaking technology. "The strike team will plant an EMP device at the heart of the Nexus," Alina explained. "Once it detonates, the Krelliks' hive mind will collapse, and the fleet will exploit the chaos to launch a decisive assault." The room fell silent. The plan was ambitious, risky, and entirely reliant on perfect execution. Rilvar broke the silence. "Who leads the strike team?" Alina's gaze was steady. "I do." The room erupted in protests. Officers argued that her place was with the fleet, that leading the mission herself was too great a risk. "I'm not asking for volunteers," Alina said firmly. "I'm going because I believe in this plan. And if we fail, I'll be the one to face the consequences." The infiltration. The stealth ship, codenamed Phantom, slipped past the Krelliks' defenses undetected. Its cloaking systems masked it from even the most advanced Krellik sensors. On board, Alina and her strike team, an elite mix of human, Turvan, and Andurian operatives, prepared for their mission. Hayes, the grizzled human lieutenant, checked his weapons and smirked. "Guess this beats getting shot at on the ground." Rilvar, standing nearby, shot him a dry look. "Don't get comfortable. If this goes wrong, none of us are making it back." Alina silenced them with a glance. "Focus. We're here to make history, not conversation." As the Phantom approached the Nexus Core, its immense scale became apparent. The fortress glowed with eerie green energy, surrounded by massive spires bristling with weaponry. The ship docked in a concealed maintenance bay, and the team disembarked, moving swiftly through the labyrinthine corridors. The core. Reaching the central chamber, the strike team was confronted by towering Krellix drones guarding the core's crystalline heart. The drones moved with mechanical precision, their spiked limbs gleaming. Alina signaled for silence. The team moved into position, disabling the guards with synchronized precision. As the last drone fell, the team planted the EMP device at the core's base. But just as they activated the countdown, alarms blared. The Krellix had detected the intrusion. "Move!" Alina shouted as waves of drones swarmed into the chamber. The team fought their way back to the Phantom, blaster fire lighting up the corridors. Haze covered their retreat, his voice crackling over the comms. "Go. I'll hold them off." Alina hesitated, her instincts telling her to go back, but she knew the mission came first. "Haze, don't be a hero." He laughed bitterly. Too late for that. The EMP detonated moments after the team escaped. A shockwave of energy rippled through the Nexus, plunging the Krellixed hive mind into chaos. The final push. Back on the front lines, the Alliance fleet capitalized on the disruption. Krellix ships, no longer coordinated, moved erratically, colliding with one another and firing wildly. The Allied forces pressed the advantage, delivering devastating blows to the once impenetrable Krellix fleets. On the Resolute, Rilvar monitored the battle with growing optimism. "It's working. They're falling apart." Alina's voice crackled over the comms as the Phantom returned to the fleet. "Don't let up. This is our moment." The Alliance pushed deeper into Krellix territory, liberating planets and reclaiming lost ground. For the first time, the tide of the war had truly turned. Aftermath. In the quiet that followed, the Allied fleet regrouped. Cheers erupted across the ships as news of the victory spread. Alina stood on the bridge of the Resolute, exhaustion etched into her features. Rilvar approached, his tone respectful. "You did it, Commander. You gave us a chance." She shook her head. "We gave ourselves a chance. But this isn't the end. The Krellix will rebuild. We need to be ready for what comes next." The victory was bittersweet. Lives had been lost, sacrifices made. But for the first time, the Alliance had proven that the Krellix were not invincible. Humanity's daring plan had become the turning point in a war once thought unwinnable. Deep in Krellix space, remnants of the hive mind buzzed with fragmented thoughts. They would adapt. They would evolve. But they would also remember the species that had defied them. Humans. The final battle. The victory at the Nexus core sent ripples across the galaxy. For the first time in years, the Krellix were vulnerable. Fragmented and disoriented, their once invincible hive mind struggled to reestablish control. But humanity and their allies knew one thing: this moment of weakness wouldn't last long. In a hidden sector of Allied space, Commander Alina Carter gathered the Coalition's leaders aboard the Resolute. The room was filled with tension as representatives from dozens of species watched a holographic projection of the Krellix homeworld, a massive planet-sized machine radiating green energy. "This is our only chance," Alina began, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "The Nexus core disruption has destabilized their entire network. If we strike their homeworld now, we can end this war." Rilvar, the Andurian's second in command, frowned. "Commander, the Krellix still have a formidable fleet defending their homeworld. Even with their hive mind weakened, they'll fight to the last drone." Alina nodded. "They will. But that's why we're going to outsmart them." She motioned to the hologram. "We've identified weak points in their planetary defenses. Our plan is to launch a multi-pronged assault, keep them spread thin while a strike team infiltrates the core of their homeworld." A turbaned strategist leaned forward, his glowing eyes skeptical. "Another infiltration mission. Didn't we nearly lose the last team?" Alina's gaze was steady. "This isn't about playing it safe. This is about winning." The strike team will plant a detonation device inside the Krellick's core, shutting down their hive mind permanently. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the stakes. The assault begins. The Allied fleet surged into Krellick space, their ships emerging from hyperspace in tight formations. The Krellick's defenders were ready, their vast fleet forming a wall of spiked warships. Even weakened, the sheer scale of their forces was intimidating. "Stick to the plan," Alina ordered over the comms. "Squadrons Alpha through Delta, engage their outer defenses. Task Force Sigma, prepare for planetary insertion." The battle erupted in a blinding storm of energy blasts and explosions. Allied ships darted through the chaos, their smaller size and maneuverability giving them an edge. Human fighter pilots, renowned for their daring tactics, led daring runs against the Krellick's warships, targeting key systems with pinpoint precision. The strike team. As the fleet clashed above, the infiltration team descended toward the Krellick's homeworld in a stealth shuttle. The planet loomed large before them, its surface a nightmare of pulsing energy conduits and towering mechanical spires. Alina led the team personally, accompanied by Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, Rilvar, and a handful of elite operatives from various species. The shuttle pierced the planet's atmosphere, weaving through automated defenses that fired blindly without the full coordination of the hive mind. Inside the shuttle, Hayes grinned despite the tension. "Just another quiet day at the office, huh, Commander?" Alina smirked faintly. "If this is your idea of quiet, I'd hate to see your version of chaos." The shuttle landed near a massive energy conduit leading to the planet's core. The team disembarked quickly, moving through the labyrinthine corridors with weapons drawn. Into the core, the Krellick's defenders, though disorganized, were relentless. Drones swarmed the corridors, their mechanical limbs clattering as they attacked. The strike team fought back with brutal efficiency, using their diverse skills to cover one another. Rilvar fired his plasma rifle, taking down a cluster of drones. This hive mind of theirs may be broken, but their numbers are as overwhelming as ever. Hayes threw a grenade into an approaching swarm, the explosion scattering their attackers. "Keep moving. We're close." The team reached the core chamber, a massive, pulsating sphere of energy suspended by glowing conduits. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Alina directed the engineers to plant the detonation device while the rest of the team held off the Krellicks. As drones poured into the chamber, the team's situation grew increasingly desperate. "Commander," Hayes shouted over the chaos, "we're running out of time." The climax. The detonation device was armed, its countdown ticking down from 5 minutes. The team retreated toward their shuttle, fighting every step of the way. As they reached the surface, a massive Krellick's war machine emerged from the ground, a towering construct bristling with weaponry. Its mechanical voice boomed across the battlefield. "You will not escape." Alina gritted her teeth. "Hayes, Rilvar, take it down." The team coordinated their fire, targeting the war machine's weak points. Explosions rocked its frame, but it kept advancing. Finally, Hayes charged forward, a rocket launcher on his shoulder. "This is for Darien 7, he roared, firing directly into the war machine's core. The explosion obliterated the construct, giving the team the opening they needed to escape. The final explosion. The shuttle rocketed away from the planet's surface, the detonation device's countdown reaching 0. From orbit, the Allied fleet watched as the Krellick's homeworld erupted in a blinding explosion, shockwaves rippling across space. On the Resolute, cheers erupted as the fleet realized the magnitude of their victory. The Krellick's fleet, now fully disconnected from the hive mind, scattered in confusion. The once coordinated terror of the galaxy had been reduced to chaos. Aftermath. In the aftermath of the battle, Alina stood on the bridge of the Resolute, looking out at the stars. The war wasn't completely over. Remnants of the Krellick still lingered, but their ability to wage coordinated war had been shattered. Rilvar approached her, his voice filled with admiration. "You've done the impossible, Commander." The galaxy owes humanity a debt it can never repay. Elena's gaze remained steady. This wasn't just humanity's fight. It was all of us, standing together. That's why we won. The galaxy began to rebuild, species coming together in a unity forged by shared struggle. And though the scars of war would remain, one thing was clear. Humanity had proven that even the most relentless enemy could fall to the courage and ingenuity of the few who refused to give up. Deep in the ruins of their homeworld, a faint pulse of green light flickered, a reminder that even in defeat, the Krelliks were never truly gone. Humanity's triumph. The galaxy was quiet in the days following the destruction of the Krelliks' homeworld. For the first time in decades, the constant buzz of fear, the relentless advance of the biomechanical invaders, was replaced by an uneasy silence. The Alliance forces regrouped, their fleets battered but victorious. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Elena Carter stood alone, gazing out at the stars. Each one represented a world that had been saved, but also countless lives lost. The weight of the victory pressed down on her, as heavy as any battle. Rilvar entered quietly, his silver skin dimmed in the low light. "They're waiting for you, Commander. The Council wants to hear your report." Elena sighed, her gaze never leaving the viewport. "What's there to say? We won. But the cost?" Rilvar nodded, his voice soft. "We all knew the cost, but the alternative was extinction. You gave us a future." The Galactic Council address. The council chamber was packed, every seat filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Elena stood at the center, her uniform singed and worn from the final battle. The room, which had once been filled with skepticism toward humanity, now watched her with reverence. "The Krelliks are defeated," Elena began, her voice firm but tempered with grief. "Their hive mind is broken, their fleets scattered. This war, this nightmare, is over." A wave of relieved murmurs swept through the chamber, but Elena raised a hand to silence them. "But make no mistake," she continued, "victory does not erase the scars of what we've endured. Planets have been lost, entire species driven to the brink. And while we celebrate today, we must never forget the price we paid." The Andurian ambassador, who had once doubted humanity's role in the Alliance, stood and spoke. "Commander Carter, you and your people have shown us a strength we could not have imagined. Humanity has proven to be the heart of this alliance. What do you propose we do now?" Elena's gaze swept the room. "Rebuild. Together. The Krelliks may be defeated, but threats will come again. Our unity is what gave us victory, and it will be our greatest defense in the future." The return to Earth. Elena's return to Earth was met with celebrations that spanned continents. Parades marched through cities, banners waved from towering skyscrapers, and crowds cheered her name. But she didn't linger in the spotlight. On a quiet hillside overlooking the ruins of a once thriving town, Elena knelt beside a simple memorial. It bore the names of those who had fallen, human and alien alike. Lieutenant Marcus Hayes' name was among them. "You gave everything," she whispered. "We all did." Rilvar, who had accompanied her, stood silently nearby. "You know," he said, "your species has a curious way of finding hope in even the darkest moments." Elena looked up at the setting sun, its light bathing the earth in warm hues. "It's what we do. We fight, we endure, and when it's over, we remember. That's how we honor the sacrifices." The legacy. The galaxy began to heal, slowly but surely. The Alliance, once a fractured coalition held together by necessity, became something stronger, a true federation, bound by shared ideals. Humanity played a central role, not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners who had earned their place through courage and ingenuity. Elena retired from military service, her name etched into history, but her work wasn't done. She spent her years traveling to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, helping rebuild worlds devastated by the war. On one such visit, a young alien child approached her, their eyes wide with curiosity. "You're the human who defeated the Krelliks, aren't you?" Elena smiled gently. "No, We defeated them, all of us. The echo of the Krulix. In the depths of space, among the debris of the Krulix homeworld, a faint green light pulsed weakly. A shard of the hive mind lingered, fractured but not destroyed. It floated aimlessly, its once mighty intelligence reduced to a whisper. But whispers can grow. For now, the galaxy was at peace, but somewhere in the cold void, the remnants of the Krulix watched, waited, and learned. The closing words. As the stars turned and the galaxy moved forward, one truth remained. Humanity had faced the unthinkable and emerged victorious. They had proven that strength wasn't just in numbers or technology, but in resilience, creativity, and an unyielding will to survive. The war was over, but the story of humanity's relentless spirit was just beginning.